Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I did see your messages about the screen resolution. After I go through my short little spiel here, I'll go ahead and get that fixed for us. We are not going to use my slide deck the majority of the night, so it shouldn't be a large issue for us here. First and foremost, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ashlyn, and I am the Assistant Director of Events and Volunteer Management for Grand Valley's Alumni Relations Office. If you haven't done so already, please introduce yourself in the chat. You can share your name, grad year, degree, and why this session was of interest to you. Tonight's workshop is the second installation of our new graduate career programming series. With the support of our GVSU alumni, Liana and Cordell, who are with us tonight, we're able to offer you in-depth career support that is specifically catered towards recent graduates and Grand Valley alumni searching for a postgraduate career. Before I hand it over to Liana and Cordell for introductions, I just want to share a brief outline of tonight's program. We do have a little bit smaller of a group size than anticipated. So instead of doing breakout sessions, we are going to stay in a larger group. Thank you, Cordell and Liana, for your flexibility on that. Cordell is going to speak with you all a bit about crafting a winning resume, identifying skills, drafting skills statements, and showcasing impact evidence, while Liana will focus on defining your personal brand. We'll all speak together a bit about upskilling and utilizing LinkedIn as well. Each portion will be about 25 minutes. We will rotate through both of those. And then please feel free to use the hand raise function or the chat as questions arise or you would like to converse in the larger group. With that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Cordell, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and a brief career history and background.
Totally. Nice to see everybody virtually. My name is Cordell Zachary. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I am a 2016 and 2021 graduate of Grand Valley State University. I put in the chat 2012 and 2016 to have my dates wrong. But my undergrad career, my undergrad degree was in advertising and public relations. And then I went on to get my master's in communications in 2021. So my career started in Grand Rapids with Steelcase, which is a global leader in office furniture manufacturing. I started in cold calling dealers, then moved into e-commerce sales, and I finished my career off there in DEI consulting, so diversity, equity, inclusion work. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. And after that, I decided to leave Michigan for the first time in my life and move over to Atlanta, Georgia, where I worked for DoorDash. And there I was a manager of diversity partnerships, events, and there I was doing recruiting events, recruiting conferences, and also cultivating relationships with nonprofit organizations to help us recruit talent. Currently, I am working for Management Leadership for Tomorrow, where I'm doing research for diversity, equity, inclusion in the tech industry. So yeah, that's me, and really nice to be speaking with you all today.
Great. Okay. And I guess I can jump in from there. So my name is Liana Voltaggio, and I also graduated from Grand Valley in 2016. I had a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies with an emphasis in international human resources. Then I also got an intercultural competence certificate from GVSU. In 2019, I wrapped up my master's degree from EMU in human resources and organizational development. And along the way, I have also been working in the HR space quite a bit, all different areas. And when I lived in Grand Rapids, I worked for a couple of different organizations like GRCC. I worked at Grand Valley, worked for Kellogg. So did a bunch of different things there, and then moved to Nissan, where I was an HR business partner. Went to another organization where I was an HR business partner. And then went to a third organization, a subsidiary Blue Cross Blue Shield, so switched from automotive, where I worked in learning and development for about a year and a half. And then about a year and a half ago, I joined Allstate, working fully remote, which is really cool, in a rotational leadership development program. So I've worked in organizational effectiveness, and now I'm in our HR strategy group doing all things project planning, scorecard, metrics, that type of work, and it's a ton of fun. So excited to be here with all of you tonight.
All right, with that, we will go ahead and get started. Would either of you prefer to go first? Otherwise, I'm going to start with you, Cordell. Your name's first in the alphabet.
I was trying to hold out, but no, I'll totally kick it off. And I'll share my screen, and hopefully we all can see it. So give me just a couple seconds. Can you see a blue deck? Can I get a thumbs up? Perfect. All right, sweet. So, we did this session before, and I was really excited for Ashlyn to invite us back. And today I'll be talking about how to craft a winning resume. And if there's any questions, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as we go. And Ashlyn, if you can just ping me, or you can unmute if any questions come about. And I'm also leaning on Leanna if any questions, if any input that you have on this, I would love for you to jump in anytime you want. So I'll go ahead and start. So the session will be successful if you leave with tips to make your resume more attractive to recruiters. I think I have a lot of good insight being on the recruiting end that I want to share with you and impart on you. And then I want you to better understand how to communicate and showcase your skills in your resume. So we'll talk about skill-based statements and also how to show impact in your work. And then I want you to be more confident in displaying your impact when going for any role. You are impactful, you are dynamic, and recruiters need to see that. So we'll go over how you can display that through a resume. So I'll give us a quick about me. So again, raised in Detroit, Michigan. My mom was a Grand Valley alum, so I kind of just had a Laker in my blood. It was kind of destined to be. I was born in Grand Rapids, and I'm currently living in Atlanta, Georgia. I moved for the career switch, moving from Steelcase to DoorDash. I graduated with a degree in advertising and PR in 2016. My dream going into college was to be like a Spike Lee, to shoot movies and shoot Nike commercials, and that just didn't pan out. I started my degree in film, and I switched over to advertising and PR, and I absolutely loved it. I loved communications. I loved writing up PR kits, all those types of things. So then I said, why not stay at Grand Valley? So I got my master's degree in communications in 2021. I did that while working at Steelcase. Shout out to Steelcase for funding that whole experience. And one piece of advice, try to find an employer that will fund that. You don't want to pay for another degree. And then so I'm an ex-DoorDasher, current researcher for MLT, and my scope of work is understanding the trends in tech, in the tech industry, around diversity, equity, and inclusion. What is the projection of tech hires over the next year? What's happening with all the layoffs and why is it happening? So work is really interesting right now. And I'm a champion for change. So I'm still very active. Although I'm in Atlanta, I'm on a nonprofit board in Grand Rapids. I still am active in the community here, working with especially Black youth. So that's a little bit about me. So we'll go forward with the slides. So I just ruined a surprise. Hold up, let me go back. I have a question for you all. How much time do recruiters spend looking at resumes? So if you can drop your guesses in the chat, I would love to see responses. How much time do you think recruiters spend when you send in an application? Let's see, I think I can open the chat. Yeah, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 15 seconds. That's good guesses, really good guesses. So I might have already spoiled it, but the average recruiter, a hiring manager, spends 6 seconds reading a resume. So I'm messing up here. So 6 seconds reading a resume means that you have to really utilize your time well. They have hundreds of applications in these applicant tracking systems. So it's very important to not only hack the applicant tracking system to make sure your resume looks really clean, crisp, and legible for those recruiters that you're sharing your resume to. So again, we're going to talk about how to make that 6 seconds and make sure your resume stands out in that time frame. So what does a bad resume look like? So I like to start there. What do we not want on those resumes? So when it's too long and not concise, again, when you have 6 seconds, you want to make sure you're utilizing your words correctly. You want to have words that are applicable to the role, to yourself and your skill set. You want to make sure it's concise. When it's too long, when it's more than 2 pages, the recruiter is going to just kind of be turned off a little bit. They want to see something that's straight to the point and concise, and they can make sense of it as soon as they see it. Also, we want it to be easy to read. We don't want bad formatting. And I think resources at Grand Valley, like the Career Center, friends who are in, maybe they're 1 or 2 years of experience in the workforce, they're going to better understand how to craft resumes. I would share your resume with people so they can make sure that it reads well. Again, we want it to read well. We want it to make sense as soon as we see it. And we also want to include metrics and data. I'm really big on this, and I'm challenging myself to do this more in my work, in my resume, but anything can be a metric or a data point. So try to embed numbers into your resume so that you can show your impact and how you were a part of that impact happening. And then also, again, we're going to talk about kind of that impact and lack of impact evidence. We don't want it to just read like a chore list. Like I stack papers as an intern for this company. We wanted to make sure that it has data metrics that show what I did, left a mark where I was, and that my work was important and that it moved the needle. And we also want to make sure the basics of like, you need to have vital information in your resume. So that's the right email, your name, how you want it to be pronounced, your LinkedIn, where you're located. A lot of times, we have organizations who have remote roles, but also they have on-site roles. So as a recruiter, I might be looking, if I'm hiring in Philly, I need to know if you're in Philly or not so I can make that decision. You don't want things to be a mystery to recruiters. So again, try to make it as obvious as possible at the top of your resume. So we're going to look at Ham's resume. And Ham's resume is pretty bad. So first off, if you can kind of see it visually, it just doesn't look pretty. Again, I think it's really fun to try to get funky with the colors, to try to add a profile picture. But I really love clean and simple resumes. He does have, his current role on top. He has his contact, but again, no LinkedIn. Sorry, guys, keeps on going forward. And then the skills, again, I think you have to be careful how you show skills. The percentages is a kind of cool way to show that. But when you look at like what the skills are, customer service, sales, Microsoft Office is very, very vague and high level. If you're going to show skills, be very specific. If you're going for a design role, say InDesign proficiency, Photoshop, be specific with languages, coding languages if you're going for tech roles. Also, if you look at some of his skill statements, so one of his skill statements is help like 50 customers per day by answering questions and helping them find products. Again, sounds very, very simple. He did include a number, but there's many ways to make sure your resume is dynamic and make it look a little bit more sexy. Again, you want to stand out and have impact words, impact statements that makes your work look as meaningful as it was. And again, I think the profile picture, I'm just iffy on it. And we'll show an example that includes a profile picture. But I think having your LinkedIn in that resume, people, if they're going to want to see what you look like, they're going to go on your LinkedIn. People do that. But I kind of just shy away from that. I like that. Keeping it cool is the best skill. Yeah, that shouldn't be nowhere near your resume. So yeah. And I see a question from Amy. Would like to know more on how to quantify work impact. We'll talk about that. Great question, Amy. Okay, cool. Go on to the next one. So what does a good resume look like? Let's look at the opposite. So again, easy to read and concise. This is really kind of opposite of what we put. So easy to read and concise. We want it to read impactfully, but let's be specific and add metrics that make sense. Again, numbers to support your impact. We're going to have skill-based statements. And when we talk about skill-based statements, when we think about interviews, we use the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. And that's what we want to do with the resume. You can do STAR right in your resume as well. The recruiters not only want to know the work that you did, why the work was important, but what your role in that work was. If you don't show what that role was in that, it's kind of just a flat statement. So we want to show how you were a part of that impact. And we want relevant work history and projects. As a new student or a student coming out of college, you're not going to have a ton of work experience usually, but you want to make sure that those internships, the full-time, the part-time work experiences are highlighted at the top of your resume. And if you don't have that, I would include those projects that you do. If you're an engineer, use your GitHub profile. If you did a psychology project and you did a case study, provide those titles and add the description in that. You want to make sure you fill out that resume so that it doesn't look too light, but also that you don't just put fluff there either. And also keywords that match the job description. So currently, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I was a part of like the 2022 tech layoffs, and that hurt me. I was like unprepared. I was 1 year into DoorDash. So I was put in a position where I said, like, I need to go back to my resume and now think about what do I want in my next steps as a career. And the first thing I did was start to look at job descriptions. What do people want from the personnel that they're hiring? What are the key words now? What's the jargon in the industry that I want to be in? If you're working in a nonprofit organization, for example, the JEDI is a lingo that they use for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. But in tech, it might be diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So I have to make sure that I'm wording my resume so that it reads to where the industries that I'm hiring. So when you're looking at these job descriptions, figure out ways that you can bake in those keywords. It can be as simple as just switching out a couple of words so that it matches the job description. And we also want to make sure we utilize white space. I'm a really big proponent of having a one-page resume. If you have maybe 1.5, 2 pages, I'm okay with that. But as long as you're utilizing white space and have enough content to fill that resume, that's the key. So we'll show this resume. And I really like this one. Again, really having your information at the top. Sophia shows, she's in Philly. She has her LinkedIn profile. She has all the information I need to have my first checkpoint as a recruiter. She has finance experience. If she's going for a role in banking, I can clearly see she has a bank teller experience, bank teller leads. Again, very clean and crisp. Again, not a big proponent of profile picture, but if it is, make sure it's a really clean profile picture. No selfies. I think that you can go and ask friends, or I'm not sure if Career Services provides that, but I would really invest in those headshots. I would invest in headshots. If it's $20, $25, these are things that are going to be really vital for not only your resume, but your LinkedIn as well. And again, she included skills that are very relevant to her roles that she's going for. So she's going for a banking role. She's talking about cash handling skills. She's talking about other skills like problem solving, which you need on those types of roles. So when you think about skills, think about a way to do it really clean, but also be really direct with the skills that coincide with the roles that you're going for. If you have languages, definitely include languages in a level of proficiency. Be real about your level of proficiency, because they will challenge you on that. If you can speak Spanish at a high level, be authentic that you can speak Spanish at a high level. So again, I really love Sophia's resume, and is a really great example of that. And if you look at some of her statements, she talked about leveraging organizational and prioritization abilities, and including that like metric with the number of customers. I think what really stands out to me about this resume is the action words that she's using. So it's not like I tried to organize. It was very direct and utilizes those words. And as you think about those skill statements, again, we're going to get into that. Try to be very diverse in the words that you use. Try not to be too repetitive so that it gets too boring. But yeah, again, love this resume, and this is a great example of what a good resume looks like. Okay, so how do we craft skill statements? So really these statements, again, I want you to think about STAR and how do we use a STAR method when we speak in interviews. So it specifies quantifiable information to depict your skill set. It's a strategic way to include STAR responses in your resume, and it provides the context needed for recruiters to see your impact. When I'm writing my resume and updating it, I'm trying to make sure that as much as possible, I'm including these skill statements in my bullet points under the roles. And I'll kind of show you what those look like. So the formula for skill statements is, again, STAR. So situation, task, action, and result. So again, when you're thinking about STAR, how do you describe the situation? For example, the city needed a comprehensive room renovation for employee training. What was the action? This person aided in drafting the room renovation model and project plan from start to completion. So this is where you get really specific about, this is what I did to help in that situation. Then the result, the city now has a proper room to house their employee training workshops. And now the training can be taught in-house. And this helps with cost cutting there. So they provided a summary of this in a statement for the resume. So save the city 35% to 50% in cost by aiding to design and plan a room renovation from concept to completion for employee training workshops. Again, in this statement, you can see that it's really clear of the metric and result from by a number standpoint, which is really impactful. I love the use of concept to completion, which is probably the jargon and language that they use in that industry. And it's very clear on why that work was impactful in that person's role in that. So as you're thinking about your resume, try to think about ways to craft your skill statements. Try to just use that STAR method as a start and condense it into a one sentence so that you can add to your resume. This will help your resume stand out and also for recruiters to see your direct impact. Cool. Are there any questions? Yeah, thanks, Leanna, for adding that. How am I doing on time? Doing good? Okay, cool. Again, any questions come up, happy to help. So one thing I wanted to add is hacking the applicant tracking system. So the applicant tracking system is what recruiters see on our end when you apply. And I added a really small graphic, and you can kind of see a better graphic if you look up applicant tracking system. But in the applicant tracking system, there's a ton going on when recruiters are going in there. They're seeing hundreds of applications. They may have 10 to 15 roles that they're sourcing and recruiting for. So again, you're in a sea of applicants. So when you're actually applying for these roles, there's a few key things you need to remember when you're hitting that application button. This is after you've crafted the resume. So you want to fill out all of the fields. And now I know it gets mad annoying when you see you had to attach the resume, but then you had to fill out the work experience. I know it feels like it's just, it's not necessary, but it is very important. In the applicant tracking system, they parse out the resume, but also they parse out those fields so they can see your recent titles, your recent projects. So when they ask for those pieces of information, take the time to provide as much information as possible, even when it doesn't feel like you feel like you don't want to. Provide that because it does show up in the applicant tracking system. And again, in those 6 seconds, they can see your position title, the school you went to, and you can again stand out. But if you don't have those fields, they'll have to go digging. They're going to have to build up your PDF. They'll have to bring up your PDF of your resume. It's just extra steps, and recruiters are lazy. No shot on recruiters, but they want to make sure they utilize their time to the best of their abilities. So make it easy for them. And again, as I talked about, baking those keywords from the job description into your resume. So when recruiters are setting up these job postings, they're having meetings with the hiring team. They're saying, what do you want from a candidate? They're going to say, I want a candidate with 7 years of experience in this. They're going to have experience with using SQL and Java. Make sure that you're including those words so that they can see that clearly in your resume or in the application somewhere. Sometimes they're going to ask you, do you have these skill sets? Add skills into this box. So do that and make sure you're coinciding that with the job description. And always attach a PDF version of your resume. As I was coming out of college, I was always attaching my Word doc, and it just is not the right move. So when you're in these ATSs, they want to see a picture, a PDF, and it's very much clean. It can't be changed, or the formatting looks really great as a PDF. And also include a referral name if possible. Again, you want to stand out. So if it asks, do you know anybody in this company that can refer you or that referred you to this role? If you can find that referral or have a referral, include that. If you found this role through a job board or a conference or a school event, include that. Recruiters are going to have these different channels that they're pumping in funding that they want to see results from. So a recruiter might have a bias to say like, hey, I did an event at Grand Valley State University. I really hope we got a hire from that. Oh, this person put Grand Valley State University engineering event. Let me see if I can pass this along. So again, you want to find all those types of fields and opportunities for you to be unique and stand out from the crowd.
Cordell, Amy asks, so should we adapt our resume for each job application based on skill words noted in the job description?
Yeah, Amy, really good question. I think that there's ways to massage it. I wouldn't completely do a complete overhaul for each role that you're applying to. I think that there are certain keywords, again, that you should watch out for. Like, this word is popping up a lot in the job description. Do I have this in my skill statements? And if not, can I reword it to include that? So even like with cover letters, I think they should be fundamentally the same. But if there's areas that you feel like you have a gap between what the job description is asking and your document, I'll try to figure out ways to bake that in. But that's a really good question. Cool. I'm getting to the end of my presentation. And the resume is only one piece of the puzzle. And Leanna, and we'll talk about more things and more pieces to that. But build on LinkedIn daily. I'm a big proponent on having a LinkedIn page. It's a great way to brand yourself. Again, as a recruiter, I was looking for people that stand out and that can add value to the organization outside of their just day-to-day skills. What are they interested in? Are they a thought leader? Do they do content? Are they a part of organizations that align with our organization? So building on LinkedIn can help you build a brand and help recruiters to better sell you and conceptualize you to the hiring managers. And then ruthlessly prep for your interview. So as you're getting ready for interviews, as I'm interviewing now, and I'm having conversations with my friends of like, how does my resume look? Can we kind of talk about some mock interview questions? Do that with your friends. Do that with the Career Center. I literally use the Career Center for so much, and I'm really, really thankful for what they did for me. And they do an awesome job at those mock interviews. It's really hard. Sometimes when you're in the roles, you don't really know how to tell the story. Like, you kind of know what you did or what you've done, but telling the story to somebody else is something that you need to practice. So practice doing that with other people, and also invest in yourself, in your brand. Again, I invested in going over a resume revamp with a buddy who does resume revamps. If there's somebody that offers that services, maybe that's the right thing for you. Maybe you're not as creative or good with design, but you want somebody to make yours more design friendly. Invest in that. These are things that, could potentially get a job. I spent $75 on a resume revamp in my transition, and I used that same resume after graduating to get my job at DoorDash, and I got I think a 40% salary increase. So that $75 is incremental on what it did for me in my switch in role. So think about these things as investments that are worth it. Also, for the same thing with headshot, if there's the opportunity to get a headshot free, do it. But if you need to invest in that, I think these are the things that you want to start thinking about. Like, what are the things that are important for me? Invest in that. And not monetarily either. Invest that time to really look over it, to take time with the job description, the job applications, with the resume. Don't rush it, but also get a good head start on this as you're getting closer to graduation. It's going to come quick. And I don't know if we're gonna do questions now, but that's all I got. I'm gonna look in the chat if there's any questions. I think I see a question from Julie. Do recruiters or employers take the time to search potential applicants on Facebook, and can that help or hurt or other social media sites? I might ask Leanna if she has any thoughts on this too. I think so. I would say yes. I think that you need to be mindful of what you're putting out there. even when people again are searching your LinkedIn, they may search on a Google search. You don't know if you have a TikTok that's top of your SEO. When people search your name, does that TikTok content coincide with who you are as a person, or is that detrimental to where you're implying to? I think you should be mindful of your brand across any socials. I definitely check LinkedIn, but I'll pause. I know Leanna may be touching this on her content, but I'll see if Leanna has anything to add.
Yeah, so I think the answer is it depends. I would agree with Cordell that you don't want to put anything out there that you don't want anyone to see. In my experience working in the recruiting space or on the HR side of the house, I'm not really looking at your social media. Do I know that when a hiring manager has gone to make their final decision, did they maybe peek around and see what they think about that person? They may have, because they're going to be working with that person every single day. Whereas I, as the HR representative, am not working with that person every day. So that's kind of my take. It depends. Be mindful.
Totally. It feels like, yeah, as a recruiter, you're not going to have a ton of time to do that, but it can come up. So definitely be mindful of what you're putting out there and how it represents you. I think another question was, I'm currently looking for a job. When I move in a few months, do I put my current location or the location where I will be living in a few months on my resume? So what I usually do, if I know I'm going to move and I know I'm targeting a certain area, I put that area on there. I think if you're confident that you're going to be relocating and that you're looking for jobs in that area, I will put that on there, unless you want to consider jobs in the area that you are currently. Again, the good thing about it is that remote work is getting more popular. So hopefully you have an employer that offers that, but definitely where you're moving to, I would add that. All right. And again, I'll add my LinkedIn, and I also saw a question from Nicolette. I'm happy to look over the resume and provide feedback, but I'll stop sharing now and hand it back.
Thank you so much, Cordell. So if anyone has questions that pertain to resume building or Cordell's portion and presentation, we can take a couple of those questions now, just with respect to Liana here coming up in a couple minutes. I will just note, as I wait for questions to roll in, if there are any, hopefully you all know that Grand Valley Career Center is available to you, not only as students, but as alumni. And so I really encourage you to visit their website, connect with one of the members of the Career Center. You can do mock resumes. All the services that were offered to you as a student are offered to you as a lifetime. So that's something that is very unique to Grand Valley. And I would highly encourage you to take advantage of it. And they are continuing to grow and revamp their services as the university grows. So even if they don't offer exactly what you're looking for now, I would challenge them and ask them about the future, and just to continue to check in with them throughout your career journey. Oh, it looks like Adam asked for a clarification on Amy's previous question about adapting resumes keywords to each job that you apply to.
Yeah, and definitely, and I think that came from Adam. I think that you should have solid skill statements that can be adjusted and massaged depending on the job description. Again, if you see a gap in the job description and there are keywords that keep popping up, or you feel like your resume doesn't speak to the role that you're applying to, I would adjust. But again, hopefully you have a strong enough resume that you don't have to do so much adjusting. You're going to be applying for a good amount of roles typically. I think I was applying to about 70 roles out of college, just trying to put myself out there. So I would have really solid skill statements that you can massage and adapt, and look for keywords that you can embed into your skill statements.
Add to that too, my favorite keyword tip is to make a word cloud. I think for some people are visual learners, and it's harder for them to take in information when they're like reading these mile-long job descriptions over and over again. So my tip is, like, find your top 10 favorite job descriptions you're going to apply to these roles, and copy and paste them all into an online word cloud generator. And if you search that online, you'll be able to find it. and just copy and paste those in. And basically the more times a word comes up, the bigger it's going to be in the word cloud. So it'll give you really good hints about which words you should make sure you're including in your resume without having to like comb through every job description in super detail.
That's wonderful. Well, Liana, it looks like there aren't any more questions in the chat right now. So if you want to go ahead and get started, and again, there'll be time for more conversation and questions after Liana's presentation on both her subject matter, and then we'll continue forward to LinkedIn optimization.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, and I'm just going to make sure that I can see the chat. Perfect. Okie dokie. Can I get a thumbs up if you're able to see? Cool. Okay, let's roll with it. So I'm gonna skip over the introduction portion since we did a little bit of that earlier, other than to say I'm not just an HR lady, I do fun things too. And I really love to travel. I love to hang out with my husband. I like to bake cakes and bread, and I'm really into being an auntie. So those are some things about me outside of being your neighborhood friendly HR lady. So today with me, we're going to talk about professional brand. And really what I've done is I've outlined kind of a step-by-step process for you to understand, what do you want your professional brand to be? What is it today? How can you reconcile those differences and put them into practice? So what does it look like to have a professional brand and make it a reality? So let's go ahead and first talk about what professional brand you want to have. The reason that I think it's important to talk about what we want versus what is true first is because we don't want to be clouded by people's feedback before we jump into thinking about what we really want for ourselves. I'm going to apologize now. I am not nearly as crafty as Cordell, and my slides are not as beautiful. Please do not judge me. Not my strength. But thinking about what professional brand you want. So first things first, step one, list any favorite past projects, roles, responsibilities, and what you liked about them. So for example, I have done analytics work in roles that I've had before. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I prefer not to. I would much rather consult with people about how they feel about a new policy than pull the metrics on it. And so it's important for me to understand that that's the type of thing I might be kind of plugging in my professional brand. So make that list and just kind of word vomit everything on paper. Get it out there. Step two, think about the words that you want to hear to describe you. So if someone were to ask you or ask me, what is Liana like? Tell me about Liana. How would I want someone to respond to that? And list out all of those words. Get them out on paper. From there, let's think about our skills. So what are some of the soft skills we bring from the table? And when you say soft skills, that means things that are intangible. So that's things like executive presence, communication, professionalism even. And then hard skills are your more tangible skills. So those could be coding language, analytical ability. So things that demonstrate a tangible output of a product versus characteristics of you as a person. So you'll want to get both of those things down on paper. And then from there, take a look at everything that you've mapped out and look for themes. So when we're thinking about who I want to be, who I am, what are things that I'm seeing come up over and over and over again? Likely, these are things that really resonate with who you are as an individual, and you'll want to continue to hone in on those strengths over time. So we'll want to make special note of any themes that we see popping up. Step two is saying, okay, we know who I want to be. How am I currently perceived? What is the reality? Because while your brand is something that you want to be in control of and something that you want to design, it often is something that is perceived by other people. So you want to make sure that other people are picking up what you're putting down. And so that is what we are figuring out here. How we can do that is make a list of the people you interact with most. I put a guideline here of 25 people. That's a lot. You don't need to do that many, but if we want to be real serious about it, 25 is a good number to use. You'll want a mix of colleagues, friends, family, folks from other areas of your life. So maybe, your church, any community organizations that you participate in, maybe you play basketball on the weekends with your friends, like you want to throw those folks in there. And the reason that we want to do this, in my humble opinion, is because I think more and more we are becoming our whole selves at work, especially with work from home. I have a lot more opportunity to be my authentic self when I'm in this space talking to you through a screen than I do when I am in office. And so I want to make sure that I am creating opportunities for me to continue to show up as my whole authentic self. And I want to represent that in the feedback that I'm gathering. So item number 2 is, once you've got this list, ask each person to share 3 words that describe you. Don't tell them what other people are saying. Just ask them for 3 words. You'll then assemble 25 times 375 words in a document, and you can put these in the word cloud, or if you're less of maybe a creative type and you're a numbers data person, you can put this in Excel. You do a little pivot table and figure out how many times each word was shared. And maybe you'll find that good communicator was on your list 7 times. And so that's almost 10% of the total data that you received back. So you can say, wow, okay, I must be a good communicator if people only got 3 words to share and so many of them decided that that was the thing they wanted to say about me. So you'll want to really know what the themes were in this feedback. And then you want to reflect. So think about what you outlined of what your desired brand is and the feedback you received. Are these things aligned? Yes or no? If it's not aligned, think about, okay, what's off? Like, am I getting this feedback and I'm thinking, ooh, that's not really what I want to hear? Or are people telling you you're a good communicator and you're like, wow, I never considered that about myself, but clearly that's something that's coming up and maybe something that I want to focus on as something that I bring to the table. I didn't consider that. So just take a look at what's aligned, what's misaligned, and how that fits with you, how that feels. I will give a caveat that feedback is a gift, and you can choose whether to keep that gift or donate it. So take everything with a grain of salt, and yourself, be true to yourself. And if someone gives you feedback that doesn't fit well, think critically about it and then choose to move on. I just like to remind people of that because it's easy to be very self-critical sometimes when we're getting feedback from others. Okay, so we've got our feedback, we've outlined our wishes, and now it's time to lay out what that professional brand actually looks like. And we do that in a statement. So how do we do that? We have a lot of data, we have a lot of feedback, we have a lot of information. How do we condense it? There are a couple of good questions that we can answer looking at everything that we've. So one is, how would you describe yourself? Characteristics. So these are some of those soft skills, some of those words that describe you, like what is really hitting home, what feels warm and fuzzy. If you are a Marie Kondo fan, what sparks joy? That's what we want to focus on here. What are you good at? So these are your tangible skills. What do you like to do? Those are those projects and those roles that you really liked. Who does it impact and how does it impact them? So who's your audience? Who are you helping by bringing these things into the universe? I'm an HR lady, so I like to talk about helping employees at an organization. And that's my focus with what I'm bringing to the table. And then lastly, why does it matter and what value does it add? So yeah, I'm a good communicator with employees, but why does that add value? Maybe it adds value because when we're communicating a policy change that's less than desirable, I'm able to find a way to effectively communicate that change and bring people along, for example. So once we answer all these questions, that's when we drill it down into 2 to 3 sentences that kind of share who you are, those gifts, and how those gifts impact others and add value. This can look different for everyone, but it's just a way to really be succinct. It's your little elevator pitch, your personal brand statement, something that really wraps you up in a sweet little bow of all the wonderfulness that you are. And then finally, it's time to make it matter. So we've got the statement, we're ready to rock and roll. And just like with our resume, we want to ask for feedback and we want to iterate. So share it with those you trust most, your mentors, your counsel, people that you trust, have them look at it, ask them if it resonates with them, and iterate as you see fit. Because again, this is yours and it is about you. And it's okay if some of this statement is aspirational, which means that we are working towards being the professional we're describing in this statement. Number 2, put it somewhere where you can see it and it doesn't just disappear into the abyss of all the things that grow around us in our daily life. This can be your LinkedIn profile in that about section. It can be on your desktop background on your computer. It can be your professional statement, your email signature, sticky note on your monitor, your cell phone background, in the shower, wherever works for you, but just something where it's in front of your face repeatedly, where you can remember to live into this and continue growing and becoming the professional that you want to be. Step 3, create an action plan. So we've got it in front of us, we're excited, but what do we actually do with it now that it's in front of us? So think about what that statement says and what things within it are already strengths and how you can make those strengths shine brighter. So again, going with the example of being a good communicator, maybe that means, this month at work, you're going to actively seek out one opportunity a week to be involved with a communication related project, or you are going to take initiative to lead the communications aspect of something that's going on so that you can continue to shine bright and be known for that. Think about if there was any feedback you said that didn't resonate as part of your brand, but maybe you think it's kind of true. Maybe one of the words that came up a few times was always late, runs late. And you're like, ooh, ick. I know that I do that, don't want to do that. Let me focus on not doing that so someone would not say that in the future. And just be mindful of anything that you might want to change. And then lastly, you want to put guardrails in place. So what gets measured gets managed. And we are people with a lot of things going on. Maybe you have kids and spouses and family and caretaking and exercise and all of the things that you do outside of work that matter. So put some guardrails in place to help you be successful. A few ways you can do that is sharing plans with a mentor, put a reminder on your calendar to reflect, do the activity again on a certain cadence within your life. It's really up to you what feels right and the support that you know you need. I know I'm a person that honestly performs a lot better when I am held accountable by an external party. Like I am not going to go to the gym if there is not a person who expects to be seeing me there. Not going to happen. Not going to happen for me. And maybe your professional brand is like that for you. So know yourself and put some safety nets in place. So that's really everything. This is one slide that just has the whole shebang on it. But I really wanted to walk you through how you can actually build a professional brand, because that can be a really hard thing to do. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Or if we don't have questions, we can always chat a little bit about LinkedIn too, if that's still part of it.
Absolutely. If no one has questions, we can switch gears a little bit. So, Cord, I will open it up to both of you if you want to chat a bit about the best ways to utilize your LinkedIn. I know, Cordell, you got into it a little bit with making sure that it's something you work into your day every day. Maybe you can speak a little more to that.
Yeah, totally. I'll go and I'll pass it to Liana. I'll go quick. And I think there are a couple tips. Again, having a page as a start is definitely a big one. I would take time in making sure that you have an updated profile picture that looks clean and crisp, kind of a headline or tag that talks about who you are. For example, I had DI champion, partnership strategist, events whiz. Because I'm not in a full-time role right now, I want to make sure that the work that I'm interested in, the skill sets that I feel like are valuable, are shared in my headline or tagline. If you're at an organization, it may be your role, but get creative so that it depicts what you want it to depict. Add media when possible. I think it's really cool to have a picture as your banner that looks really clean. In your bullet points, you can add video, you can add articles that maybe you were a part of or worked on or speak to the work. I think for my internship, I had like a video of me speaking at Mercantile Bank, and I think that was again, this is a way to animate your resume in a way to show your skills in a very unique way. So figure out those ways to do that, make it eye grabbing. And sometimes, I usually add a couple bullet points about my role underneath my on my LinkedIn, underneath my role, like bullet points about, again, those skill statements as well. But you want to keep it, again, concise and not too long. But some people just have the title in their company. But with where you are as students, I would probably add some of those, like, what do you do on those roles underneath your LinkedIn profile as well. Of course, add your education if you have either just certain licenses or certifications that you've built up. And they have sections for that. Although also your extracurriculars, this is a great place to put it. So if you're part of a society, a fraternity, I have a network or a LinkedIn group that connects me to all my fraternity brothers. So people are looking for that. Again, it may not show on your resume, but they're going to go on your LinkedIn and say, oh, this person is interested or is a part of this group. Now I'm really interested in talking to them. And then now you have a talking point. And I think that it's hard to know, like, when I was first using LinkedIn, it was hard to know how to engage with it. And I think you're going to find your own rhythm with it. But I think the most important part about it is to engage. If you have a page, try to do something. I was at a conference and they were building up this person's LinkedIn page. And there's a company that was doing this for a celebrity or a high profile client. And they were posting 3 to 4 pieces of content a day. Again, you may not be at that level, but think about things, if it's twice a week, challenge yourself to think about, like, what can I do twice a week to engage with LinkedIn? And maybe reposting an article. It may just be putting out, graphics with some words. I think it really is helpful when you have pictures and videos that you're resharing and adding a couple of words. It's hard. You got to figure out what your lane is on LinkedIn, but when you find it, tap into those channels. Because again, when you're going for these roles, people want to see who you are. They want to see all dimensions of you outside of your resume. So LinkedIn can be a really good way to show, like, oh, this person is really invested in design because they're showing that new Warby Parker video that they put out that showed their new lookbook, and they're really interested in this brand. So I think I'm going to consider this for this brand role. So again, as we talk about the brand statements that Liana has just talked about, this is a way to exude that. So LinkedIn is a great channel for that. Again, I think recommendations are a really cool part as well. If you have professors or colleagues that you've worked with, ask them to write a recommendation. They look really neat at the bottom of your profile. And it can be a good way for people to kind of validate the skills that you're putting on your profile. And honestly, I just think at the end of the day, it's a great way to just tap into your network and keep that network. My friend Leanna here, when I was laid off, sent me a role at Allstate, which is awesome. And I just realized I never replied, but I was so thankful for Leanna sending that role and saying, hey, I thought about you for this. I know what you're interested in. I saw your LinkedIn page. I put out a post that, hey, like, I'm going through a transition. Now people know that this person, I need to look out for roles for them, or let me think about them for a role. So this LinkedIn can help people be more aware of you, your brand, and things that come to mind when they think of you. So I'll pause there and hand it to Liana.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Cordell, you summed it up perfectly, and I just wrote down 3 things to add. My first one is like, don't be afraid to copy other people. And what I mean by that is like, I am not a content creator. I don't know the first thing about creating content, but I do know that there are other people in the spaces that I enjoy that write super cool content. If I have something I want to say, I look at how they say it and I try to say it the same way. Or I share what they say and add my 2 cents about what they've shared. I don't need to, write these beautiful, crazy, amazing posts. It's just about being out there and identifying what I think and feel about what's going on in my space. So don't be afraid to piggyback off some people who are already doing really amazing things out there. Secondly, it is uncomfortable to brag about yourself. That is why people struggle with resumes. And LinkedIn is the place to also brag about yourself humbly. It is a place to say, look, here's a photo of me from this conference where I learned about X, Y, and Z, and it was so informative because of blah, blah, blah. That is the place to do that, and it's going to be uncomfortable. After a few times, you're going to be like, I gotta take my LinkedIn photo, and you'll be ready to rock and roll. So just know it is the time and place for that kind of thing. And then lastly, I have gotten 2 job offers this way. Don't be afraid to reach out to hiring managers on LinkedIn. So what I'll often do is I'll apply for a job, and then I will go to that company's LinkedIn page and search for the person that I'm pretty confident is the hiring manager for the role. And then I just take a shot and I send them a message. I let them know how excited I am about the role, one thing I think it can bring to the table, and that I look forward to connecting with them. And that has worked out for me twice, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. So don't be afraid to take that extra step and give someone like a cold call. It can be really helpful. So those are my 3 additions.
I love that advice. I think, we're always encouraged to highlight if we're showing personal interest in a role, and told that that is what those hiring are most interested in. So that's a great way to kind of jump over that barrier of who to contact and how, and make it happen. So thank you for that advice. I'm just reading Cordell's comment in the chat. So if anyone has any further questions about optimizing LinkedIn, skilling up on LinkedIn, personal brand, now is the time to ask any questions. So I would encourage you all to do so. Yes, absolutely. I will send out the slides as well as the recording of this in the next few days. So keep an eye on your email. You'll be able to access both of these. With that comment, I will jump in really quick and share. So on our website, which of course we will always encourage you to check out, it's gvsu.edu/alumni. There are many different things going on there, but we have created a page specifically for recent grads, as well as the career readiness programming. And so I encourage you to look through our whole page and see everything that Alumni has to offer you. You can also visit gvsu.edu/alumni/recent grads. That will have all the details on the upcoming programming, how to sign up, videos to previous programs, resources, everything of that nature will be housed on that page, as well as other curated resources that are applicable to our most recent graduates. So I encourage you, when you have the time, to check that out. Just making sure no questions rolled in. I will go ahead and hold it for just another couple seconds here. If anyone has any last minute questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can always, if you would like to have conversation, unmute yourselves at this time. Okay, I will go ahead and plug our upcoming series into the chat as well for you all to look at. Every other Wednesday until March 8th, we are having career readiness programming. So 2 weeks ago, we started. We have this programming tonight, February 8th. We have Know Your Worth, Understanding the Job Offer. So that is really evaluating the offer proposition and how to leverage yourself in those conversations. We also have a program on February 22nd, specific to relocation. If you are moving or searching for jobs outside of your area, or if you are offered a job outside of your area, resources as you make that move. And lastly, we will be having a session on taming imposter syndrome. So some good tools here to tap into if your schedule permits. With that, I would just like to extend my gratitude to Cordell and Liana for helping us out again tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and connecting with us this evening, and also for your flexibility. As we, I lost my notes here. They have provided their contact info, and I will go ahead and drop that in the chat in just a moment here as well. And as we send out our follow-up email, you'll have access to that. So I encourage you to connect with them as well on LinkedIn. Absolutely. Thank you, Cordell. With that, I will go ahead and remind you that as Grand Valley alumni, our commitment to you is as a Laker for a lifetime. So we really hope to walk around alongside you, as well as all of our alumni, as you reach for and achieve your next goals. So I encourage you to call on our office for any support that you may need. If we don't provide the specific resources, we often are a gateway to get you in contact with other resources across the university. So thank you for attending tonight. Thank you for your questions and thoughtful discussion, and I hope to see you in a couple weeks at Know Your Worth.